Shalom, guys. This is Onieh, and today we are once again going through Hebrew together, and we're going to be learning some new things today. So today we are going to be covering, in particular, certain pronouns as well as some particles. And I wrote some information in a document file, but we're also going to be consulting some of the PDFs of grammar books that I actually consult to learn the information. So I'll be sharing the screen with you guys periodically for those specific books when I am reading from them. And sometimes I might also be reading from a specific website. So that's actually going to be where we start today. We are going to start with a website, and from there we will go through the different links, and then once we go through the links on the website, then we'll switch to the document file that I prepared, and we might go back and forth depending how it flows. So let me start sharing the screen. Now this is going to be a lot of information today. Walter's coming on, and I anticipate Melissa will hopefully be coming on soon. Hey Walter, good to have you here. We just started, but we haven't really talked about anything yet. But so we're going to be, what I just told them is that we're going to be learning some pronouns today, as well as learning about particles, or basically like adverbs and things like that. So that's really what we're going to be doing today. Oh, and prepositions, they're called.
Okay, on. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So now I'm sharing the screen, and this is a website called Hebrew for Christians, and they have some actually good, they do a pretty good job of representing the Hebrew language, and they do it according to the Masoretic Hebrew. There's some really good stuff that they share, and they put it together in a organized fashion. So I'm using their website for some of what I'm presenting to you guys, because like I said, they present it neatly, and I was trying to prepare all this stuff, but I didn't have enough time. I didn't take enough time to prepare everything, so that's why I'm using some of these websites, because it's not all in the document file, but it's like the basic gist of what I want to share with you guys is in my head. So I'm using these different websites, PDF files, and my own document to just bring it all together for you guys. So let's see here. This one just tells us what pronouns are, the English concepts. So we really don't need to go over that. I assume you guys know what pronouns are. Okay, so this one, we've talked about this before. I opened a bunch of the links, and I didn't look at some of them yet. So basically, we've talked about these before in one of the prior in one of our prior lessons, the personal pronouns, like basically I, you, singular, and you, plural, you, plural, she, he, we, they. Those are called personal pronouns when they are their own unique words. And we reviewed those in a prior lesson. Now we will eventually go in depth into those pronouns once again, but we're going to move on from those because I'm going to be sharing with you guys some new pronouns. But one other thing, though, to mention about these is that, let's see, okay, basically what I was going to say is that verbs usually have a personal pronoun attached to it. So whenever you see that, usually you don't need the pronoun. Like, for example, in English, if you were to say I love you, you'd have to use I every single time you want to say I love you. You'd have to say I and then love you. In Hebrew, if you did that, if you did Anaki or Ani, both of those are the word for I in Hebrew. If you use those and you say I love you, and you use those pronouns, you'd be saying I love you. You'd be saying I twice. Now that does happen in Hebrew occasionally, but the normal way of doing it is once you introduce the pronoun, then you don't have to keep using that pronoun anymore. Kind of like how it works in other languages where you introduce a name and then you don't have to keep using the name anymore. Like if I was to say, if someone was to talk about me and say, Onieh is on the call right now. Onieh likes talking with you guys. Onieh, oh, Melissa's coming in. Let's just wait for her to come on. Hey, Melissa, good to have you on. We haven't gotten too far yet. We're basically going to be covering pronouns and prepositions and adverbs essentially today. So basically giving you vocabulary. And so like what I was saying is like if you just like in English, like if you were to say Onieh is on the call right now, Onieh says hi. Do you have anything you want to say to Onieh? Like if you keep every sentence that follows, you keep using my name, it sounds awkward and it doesn't make sense in a language way of speaking. The way you do it in languages in general, but be it English or any language, you introduce the name, you introduce the person, so you identify who they are by their name or pronoun. So you say, Onieh is on the meeting right now. Do you want to say anything to him? He is very interested in what you guys have to say. You use he and him instead of the name because you introduce the name, and now because it's understood who you're talking about, it's unnecessarily redundant to keep using the name Onieh over and over again. So you use the simpler form. That's how it works in Hebrew for these pronouns. So when you're introducing a subject, you will either introduce them by their name or by a pronoun. Like let's say, like I. But after you do that, you don't keep using those pronouns. You then switch to the simple verb, and because the verb has the pronoun attached to it, like I said. So for example, I'm trying to think of a word here. A good example. Serve, the word for serve, abed. So abed t, the suffix t means I. So you don't need to say Anaki abed t, I serve, because you'd be saying I serve. You're saying I twice. You, like I said, you only use I twice in certain limited cases, such as if you're trying to emphasize who is speaking, like you'll often see it translated like I myself. That's because it occurs twice. I myself, or even I, like it's the emphasis on the pronoun. But like I said, once you introduce the pronoun, you don't have to keep using the word for the pronoun. Like I said, there are exceptions of when you do use it. So with that said, I think we will move on from these personal pronouns, they're called, because like I said, we've discussed these before. Yeah, I just said this right here. You see right here, the paragraph, the reflexive personal pronoun refers back to another personal pronoun as its antecedent with which it agrees in the indefinite number. In Hebrew, this form of expression is normally communicated using the personal pronoun in conjunction with the verb for emphasis. And you can also use it for nouns, like as like a adjective almost. Like for example, I am Hebrew, or I am a Hebrew. You would use the pronoun. That's one case that you do use the pronoun. So with nouns or adjectives, you will use these pronouns. Thank you for sharing the link, Steve. Steve shared the link in the chat from the website that I'm going along. But now we're going to click out of that tab. And now we have here, these are object pronouns. Let's see here. I might skip this one. Let's see here. I did talk about the Aleph Tav in a prior lesson. That tells you who the verb is, what the verb is being done to. So the king built. What did the king build? Oh, Aleph Tav, the temple. What did the king build? The Aleph Tav points you to when you see Aleph Tav, the word immediately after is what it's being pointed to. So the king built the temple. If it didn't have Aleph Tav, it wouldn't be clear necessarily that the king was building the temple. Because without the Aleph Tav, it might actually look like the king is the temple. So it's important to have the Aleph Tav there to convey that we're being told what the king is actually building. And in Genesis 1:1, God created, what did he create? At the heavens and at the earth. David loved. Who did he love? At Jonathan. And you also have suffixes. All right, no. When a personal pronoun is the object of a verb, like he loved me, you use Aleph Tav, but instead of making them separate words, you combine Aleph Tav with the suffix ending, so it looks like it's all just one word. So you have first person, it's me. Let me see the annotation marks. So you've got right here, that is, that's me, and this is Aleph Tav. So you combine it together, and that is at me. Who do you love? It's directed at me. If you're saying he loves you, and you're masculine and you're a man, he loves who? At you. Oh yeah, and feminine, it's apparently spelled the same, just with different vowel markings. But of course, we're pretty much ignoring vowel markings in our learning of Hebrew because they were not originally part of the language. We will eventually learn a little bit of the vowel markings, but it's not so much important to learning the language when we're trying to go back to the original Hebrew of the Dead Sea Scrolls, for example, and behind the Septuagint. It didn't have vowel markings, so we don't need them to understand. But they do help to some extent to see the evolution of the language and it preserves an authentic Hebrew dialect. So it's important to know that Hebrew dialect because it can help us pronunciation-wise and perhaps help solve some etymological issues as well, in the sense of trying to figure out what the root words are. But yeah, so if you're saying him, like who you loved him, who did you love? At, it's telling you, okay, at, it's going to be directed at an object, and the object is him. Who did you love? At, directed at her. Who would you love? Directed at us. Who would you love? At, directed at all of you men. Who would you love? Directed at all of you women. Who did you love? Directed at all of those men. All basically at them, men, and at them, women. And it doesn't have to be necessarily men and women. It could be anything that's masculine or feminine in Hebrew language. Yeah, so that is that. The Lord sent me, or Yahweh sent me. Yahweh sent at me. And for I have seen at you righteous. I have seen you righteous. In the image of God, or Elohim, created he basically, in the image of God, he created at him. So who did he create in the image of God? Was it directed at? Him, male and female. He created, who did he create, male and female? At them. And just by the way, the at only is used for, it's used for definite, direct object mark. What that means is it's not used for indirect objects. So for example, he spoke to him. You do not use aleph tav when it's to someone. When a verb is to someone, like so for example, he spoke words. When you say that, the object is direct because what word? What did he speak? Words. But if you say, I ran to the store, what did you run? You didn't run store. It doesn't make sense to say I ran store. You ran to the store because the store is not being run, but it's being, you are running. you are the one who's running, but where are you running? To the store. So you run, or I run, and not store run. So I run to the store. And the store is not being run by something else, but it's someone is running to it. Therefore, it's indirect object. So when you have an indirect object in Hebrew, you do not use aleph tav for that. You also do not use it when it's indefinite. You use it for definite. So definite, it basically means like, it essentially means like, well, it's used when it's, let's see here. So I guess it's used for the personal pronouns. So when you do personal pronouns, it's going to be used, but it's also used with names, and it's used with nouns that have the attached to it. Now, the in Hebrew is signified by adding a hey at the beginning. The letter hey is this letter right here. This is hey. If that's added at the beginning, so it's this letter right here. It's added at the beginning of a word that makes it the, whatever the noun is. Not always, because sometimes hey means something else when it's added at the beginning of a word. But to say the in Hebrew, you add hey at the beginning of a word, and when you do that, that's when you use aleph tav as well, if that's an object. But if it's an indefinite object, like if you're saying, if you said he ate a, if you were saying he ate a goat, you don't use aleph tav because it is directed at the goat, but it's not not a definite direct object. Definite means it has the, or it's like a personal pronoun, or a like a what's it called? There's a special term for it. Basically, if it's someone's name, then that's also a definite object. So but if you were saying he ate the goat, then you use aleph tav because it's telling you it's directed at that definite goat, that the goat. So he ate, directed at the goat. So that's when you use aleph tav. Hopefully that makes it clear to you guys. Yeah, it's called a definite article. That is what is usually referred to as in the by the scholarly references. Now, and yeah, you can see it's for Christians, but it says, oh wait, never mind. I totally misread that. I thought it said sermon for a second. I was gonna say, yeah, you could tell it's Christian because it's saying sermon, but that word is section, not sermon. So my eyes play funny tricks on me sometimes, and I see words that are not there. Okay, so now we are doing demonstrative pronouns. Okay, and when you say okay, so Hold on. You guys can see when I mark stuff, right? Just want to make sure. So this right here is this. And so also this is also this, but that's the feminine version. So the masculine is and the feminine is za. However, when you do plural, it's these, and it becomes a completely different word. Alle. So we will write those words down for vocabulary that we'll try to remember. Now, if you're saying that or those, apparently you use these ones. Now, these are the pronouns for he and she, which apparently can also be used to mean that. And then these ones can also mean those, but they are basically they. Masculine they, feminine they. So it gives us some examples here. This is, you don't write is in Hebrew usually. So is invisible. You're not going to see the word is in Hebrew, but it's understood by context. So this is this right here is the, and then woman. So we got this, and it's the feminine, right? And then this, but it's a masculine, is the, because there's hey prefixed, and then the word for man. And these, it's the same for both masculine and plural, same word you use, same spelling. These, the men is ha-anashim, and then these are the woman, nashi. And she is the woman. It's used, apparently it's used to, as if it meant that, but it really means she. So she is the woman. Or she the woman. She is the woman. He is the man. And those are the women. Or they are the woman. And they are the men. And then it gives some other examples. We have this is the house. This is the man, the good one. These are the people or the men, the good ones. He is the word, the good one. He as in that, because it doesn't make sense to say he is the good word. It makes more sense in English to say that. So that's why they say that instead of he. But remember, in Hebrew, everything has gender. So it doesn't sound weird in Hebrew, but it does sound weird in English. So if you're going to translate it, you'll keep in mind that you probably say that or it or something. It is the good one. And these are the words. This is the day. And Yahweh or Yahuwah, he is the God. And it tells us a demonstrative pronoun appears before any other adjectives. So if there's an adjective, the demonstrative pronoun must come first because it's demonstrating what it is. It's telling you what it is, and therefore it follows whatever it's being told that it is comes after the word that's saying that it's going to tell you what it is. Same thing with aleph tav. There's a word order for some of these words where if you have a directional word that's telling you that it's being directed at something, then the direction is going to come right after. So this is very specific and linked to a specific word, and therefore the very next word is what this is referring to. So this is the man, the good one. You don't say the man, the good one, this, or the man, this, the good one. You say this first. You always say this or these first. But we see here that the name of Yahuwah comes before. So there might be a difference for actual names potentially. Or it might just work differently for, let's see here. Yeah, so I don't know why Yahuwah is first here, but like I said, it might just be that's how it works for names. Steve, what are you saying about sounds like caveman speak? Like the different order or something? So really, like the way I'm phrasing it is the best way to translate it in like the order. But like for example, we say the good boy. In Hebrew, they say the boy good. By context, you know, oh, it's saying the boy. Which boy? The good one. The boy is a good one. But you don't need to use all those helping words because the order of the words is enough to tell you that relationship. Just like in English, we don't have to say those words. A good boy or a good man, the order of those words tells us, oh, that's an adjective. But in English, you can rearrange the words. But if you rearrange the words, then you have to add those extra words. So you could say the man, comma, the good one. And that is actually acceptable in English to say it like that. But you have to add those extra words to clarify the meaning of the grammar. But when you do it the regular way in English, the good man, you don't need to have those words to tell you that it's an adjective because that's how English works. And same thing for Hebrew, except it's reverse. So it's the man good, saying the man, the good one. But in Hebrew, you're just saying the man good. Good man, the man good. So now we'll get rid of that. we'll go to the next. So we have here wait, that's vocabulary. Hold on. So Asher, the best way to translate it pretty much is which. And they sometimes translate it as who, whom, or that, or what, but I would argue that pretty much it always means which. And not which like a female practitioner of the arts, but WHICH. Sorry for the dogs in the background if you can hear the barking. But yeah, so he sent at, who did he send? Or what did he send? Directed at. Why is it directed at? Because there's a the there. The youth. They translate it as young man, but it really is the youth or the young one. Which or who sat or dwelt in the house. But it doesn't have the there. Actually, there is a possibility that it does have the there. We'll have to cover that at a different time, or I might cover it later. But it's not written in the text. It might be written in the vowel marking, potentially. But as the text currently stands, there's no the, so it's a who dwelt in house. Well, looks like Jeremiah's coming on. Oh, it sounds like it might be raining where I am. Hopefully it stops raining when I have to go to work tomorrow. But okay. Anyways, good to have you on, Jeremiah. We're doing, oh, okay, I guess he's off. So we are doing pronouns and adverbs and prepositions today. We're going to try to cover that. Yeah, we already heard the dogs, exactly. So right now we're on Asher, and like I said, it basically just means which. So we go here to this example. I'm using this website currently to share this information. Hebrew for Christians. Could you hear the thunder in the background? So this almost is like a play on words in Hebrew because it's using the same, like, look, it uses Asheri and Asher, but they mean different things, but it's using the same words and similar pronunciation. And so it's almost like, it's poetry. That's from the Psalms. So that's probably why it's using, it's poetic like that. But at any rate, happy is the man which walks not or does not walk in counsel of wicked ones. Then we go to the next example that they give us. As which, they translate it as just as, but it's actually like which or as which commanded Yahweh, God of Israel. Of Israel. So Asher basically means which. And then we've got some, hold on. You just go to the top of the page. Okay. Oh yeah. So also you can prefix just the letter shin to a word. Did they give an example like that? They didn't show us in this, but you can do that as well. When you have a shin attached to it, it usually I think means something like that, but it might also mean which. Okay, so now we go here, and me is who? The word me translates to the English word who. So who, remember, are and is are not written. So who are you? Now it uses aleph tav here, but that might just be coincidence. Because it's not saying at the person. The aleph tav is the word you in this case. Who are the men? Oh, I told you guys earlier that the these and this comes first. Well, for some reason it's not coming first, so that might not be true what I said earlier about this and these coming first. But so in this case, we've got who are the men, which men? These ones. And you're actually saying these, the ones of these or something like that. Who is God like or as you? And now we've got what? The word for what is ma or meh. Meh. But you're saying what? What is the name, or what is name of yours? Or what is name your? What is this? What is Yahweh, God of yours, asking? Sechal or Sachil, related to Saul. And what did you? And then we've got here this word aleph yod kaf is ayik or aik, and that's how. How let's see. I'm not sure how to translate this because this looks like it's being written as a participle in Hebrew. How is it said? How is it being said or something like that in Hebrew? And then where, aleph yod, where is Abel, brother of yours? Now look at this. Lama or lame. That means why. fallen let's see here. Oh, that's because face is plural. In Hebrew, faces is plural. Penaim or penim. So why fallen they, the faces or faces of yours? Why fallen they, faces of yours? Is what you're actually saying in Hebrew. Why is your face fallen? Now, what's interesting is lama or lame. Now, that word means for what? For what? For what reason, aka why? For what thing is your are your faces fallen? And so what's really cool is hold on a second. So you know how I said for what? Well, let's take a look at what for what is. In another language, and that is, I'm just getting the link right now. So here we go. In French, you say pourquoi. So we look here, pourquoi. Pour comes from the Latin for, qua. I don't think that's the right. So this is okay. Qua dative for which or for, it's basically the same. Here it is. For what? See? For what? So French has the same concept. Interesting. So pourquoi is literally the same thing you're saying in Hebrew for you're saying for what? Because the lamed means for or to in Hebrew. So for what or pourquoi? Why? For what? For what reason? Why? All right. And then this is there's an explanation for this, but it's a little confusing. I had to look at it more. But basically, this word right here, it comes from the first part. It basically means like from, and the second part, it's the word for no. But it basically means the same thing as why, but it's worded a little bit differently than for what. This one's like from, like there's a Latin phrase that corresponds to the Hebrew. So it's a common language way of saying it. So why why prospers way of wicked ones? So in Hebrew, you know how I said earlier, if you want to say the, you add a hey at the beginning of a word, of a noun, and that makes it the. Well, hey also makes it a question. When you want to make a phrase a question, you add hey at the beginning. So this first line shows without the hey, and that's this person, whoever did this, wrote the wrong word, I think. So I'm pretty sure I thought the word to send is with a het. Shin lamed het. But they're spelling it with a K. So that could be an error on their part. Or maybe there's another word that means send that's spelled this way. But I think it's an error on their part. But anyways, sent the king at, who did the king send? He sent the prophet, Nabiya. Now, if it has hey at the beginning, it basically is sent the king at who? The prophet? The king sent the prophet? Or it basically, as it translates it, did the king send the prophet? But like, you know how in English we can ask questions with intonation and tone? That's basically what they're doing. With hey, they're saying, a, like you know how like we have the tone to make it a question. The king sent the prophet. The at the end. Well, the same thing for them, except that they have it at the beginning, and they have eh. The is the hey, and then they have the phrase. So let's see here. Yeah, and por qué is in español, in Spanish, which is the same thing because both Spanish and Latin and French are derived from Latin. They are actually descendants of Latin, direct descendants. No, it's basically just like no matter who's saying it, it's, oh yeah, you're saying like an old person. Yeah, like, eh? All right, let's see here. God I? God I? Or Elohim? Elohim? Ani? And Hazik Oa? That's, is he strong? Amar Amar Elaine. That's from Genesis. Did God say? It's saying, God said? God said it? Eh? Okay. Looks like we've got that. So we have finished the pronouns there. Okay. So now now we're going to look at these are prepositions. So we have memnoon, it's from. So he walked from the city. He sat or he dwelled in the midst. This word basically means midst. They render it as side, inside, but it's really in the midst of the house. He went to the presence of a king. But this is plural. The presence, it's like the faces of the king. Like you know how someone has like how like an object might have surfaces? It's the same basic concept, surfaces. So your face, it has surfaces all around. And so that's why it makes it plural. And then he sat or dwelt under the tree. The king dwelt, here's the word for between, bet yod nun, between the wood, or between wood. In Genesis, God distinguished between the between the light and between the darkness. And tree of the life was in the midst of the garden. Okay. Yeah, so garden is 2 letters. In Hebrew, it's gan. So like you're saying Garden of Eden, you say Gan Eden. Yep, we did the pronouns. Now we're going to do the anti-nouns. Exactly, Steve. Okay, so yeah, it's a good resource, Hebrew for Christians. I definitely recommend consulting it if you're curious about different things. Yeah, and also we've got here, oops. He walked upon, they render it as on, but it's really more like upon the land unto eternity or forever, or it's until, or till forever. And there's some debate about whether it's proper to translate it as forever, but we can talk about that a different time. Let's see here. So normally you use mem at the beginning of a word to mean from. It can also mean out of. However, there is evidence, according to scholars, that mem prefix actually originally comes from mem noon prefix. And the idea is that, just like I've told you guys before, how the letter N can be dropped because it becomes silent when it immediately follows into a consonant right after in the same syllable. The same thing was happening with this sound. So so if you're saying from, you went from the house, or you went from house, you would say for from house, originally it was min by it, but because the N becomes silent and like soft and becomes silent, you don't hear it. So it's, instead of min, it's min by it. Okay. Yeah, so the basic form, that the separable form, it means it has to be part of a word. It's actually contraction. The noon drops off in the first letter of the following word. Oh, we don't care about that. That's a vowel mark. But so we've got here, when you have min and mikom, it combines into, it drops the noon. Same thing here, min malek, from a king, it would originally be min malek, but the noon becomes so soft and silent, it just drops. And originally it would have been min by it, but again, the noon drops, and it would originally have been minya, but the noon is so soft and silent that, or so soft it becomes silent, and so it becomes miyod. Okay, let's see, we've got here. Yeah, from man, same thing. From a sword, from city. But apparently when you, let's see. Okay, so look at here. So when you have apparently in other words, when you have a prefix, it does drop hey, even when it's supposed to say the. So remember I said earlier, it might be written in the vowel mark for the house. Well, apparently when it has a prefix, the is implied and it's dropped. It's not actually written, but it is pronounced. But when you use mem, you have to still write it. If you don't write it, then it's assumed it's not the. But if it was bet, the prefix bet, the letter B at the beginning of a noun, the hey would disappear. Now, what's also important to keep in mind is that original Hebrew, the oldest Hebrew that Moses and Abraham and Enoch used, did not have the word the at all, or the prefix the. The did not exist in Hebrew originally. That's a later development. Just like all languages, the is a later development. So just keep that in mind. The was created over time by linguists to help people understand what's being said, especially because they started dropping case markings. And when you drop case markings and distinguishing all the different forms, that's when things start to get confusing and they look similar. Oh yeah, and interestingly, the prefix for mem, can, and memnun means like something like more than or greater, like it can mean like the highest of something apparently or something. So that's an interesting thing as well. Yeah, so that's that one. You can add prefixes to prepositions. So you got the preposition upon, and you're adding men to it, so it becomes me o. And then same thing for under, same thing for with. Okay, let's see here. So we've already done these vocabulary, so I'm trying to see if there's anything else on this page that we haven't looked at. No, so prepositions can have suffixes. So to me, to you, to me, to you, to him, to her, to us, to you all men, to you all women, to them men, to them women. And the same thing for some of the other ones. You've got in me, in you, in him, in her, in us, in you all, in them, in them. This word is with, I and them, and that means with, compared to Aleph Tav, also means with, but in a slightly different sense. So with me, with you, with him, with her, with us, with you all, with them, with them. Let's see. if it's a plural noun, well, it says other prepositions take the suffixes for plural nouns for some reason. So the prefix I, or the preposition ayin lamed, takes plural ending forms for some reason. But what's also interesting is that in some words, yod is used in singular to mean of. So that could be the case here. And the same thing for aleph lamed here. You got the suffixes. Aleph lamed also uses the plural forms when it's doing the suffixes. Aleph lamed means unto. And achar means after or behind. Yesh or ish means is or exists. Exists, man in field. Man exists in field. In the field, because the is dropped, remember. Exists, men in the field. Exists for me a son. Son exists for me. Exists for man, son. Exists for him, son. Exists for us, son. Exists a way, right, for the presence of a man, and after it is way or are ways of death. Ayin means not man in the field. Or it means like it means like the opposite of exists. So you could render it not exists or does not exist man in the field. Does not exist people or men in the field. And same thing, exists not for me, son. Exists not for man, son. Exists not for him, son. Exists not for us, son. And they translate this as there is none who does good, but it doesn't say there. It says exists not doing of good. Doing of good exists not. That's basically what it says. Or doer of good exists not. They could also mean doer of good exists not. So you can see that's why they translate it as there is none who does good. One who does good, it does not exist. Is basically what it says. However, that passage is interesting because It's actually not saying what a lot of Christians think it's saying. Because the very context of scripture tells us that there are people who do in fact do good. So it cannot be possible to say that no one does good. I mean, it cannot be true. Apparently it says possession in the past can be expressed by the verb haya combined with the inseparable preposition lama. And when it says inseparable, it means it can't be its own word. It has to be joined to another word. That's why it's called a preposition. So this one also basically means exists or was, but we'll just say exists. Exists to me, son. Does not exist to me, a son, or did or exists existed for me, a son, and did not exist for me, a son. And it says you can also use it for the future. There will exist for me a son. And there will not exist for me a son. Okay. So I think we've got that covered. All right. Oh yeah, that's the Wi-Fi extension thing that Steve was telling me about. I put it in a tab to check out later. So let's see. Just have anything good to say? Who is me? Ma is what? When is Mathi? Where is either Aleph Yod or Aleph Yod Hey Hey. Now actually, this is two different words. It's Aleph Yod combined with Pei Hey. Pei Hey, I believe, means here. So where here? For what? It's why. Aleph Yod Kaf is how. Aleph Lamed, to, for, belonging to, or according to. Aleph Mem is usually rendered as if. Bet Yod Nun, between. Kaf Yod is usually rendered as that, or no, like it can be rendered different ways, but I believe the best way to render it is let's see. I think it was since. I'd have to double check that, but there's a better way to translate it than going all the different ways they translate it. You can pretty much translate it consistently as like, I think it's since, because usually it means because, Mem Yod Noon, they say means from. Yod Dalet means until or till. This word, I guess, means again with a Y in the middle. Ayin Lamed means upon or over something. And it also can be used to mean against something, like you're fighting against something, you're fighting upon something. Or you're leaning against a tree, you're leaning upon a tree. Because against means you're on something, but you can also use against to mean fighting. So against a tree, or you're going against the tree, as in you're fighting it. And shin mem means there. We did this aleph shin resh, and that's which. But this one right here, aleph wa, means or. And it basically is pronounced ow or o. Some pronounce it as o, but the correct pronunciation here, based on the letters used, would be o. Excuse me. It would be ow, because it forms a diphthong. Ow, ow. And then gimel mem means also, and pei nun means less. Jeremiah had to leave. Hopefully he found it interesting. Kaf nun means, they say so, and they translate it different ways, but I believe the best way to render it is such. Always render it such, pretty much. So, and it was such. It was so. Ayin tav hey, now. Aleph ka, kaf is surely. Resh kof is only. Aleph wa lamed yod, perhaps. Aleph wa lamed mem, but. So we'll have to go into these some other time in greater depth. But oh, and also in Dead Sea Scrolls, this is written with an aleph at the end usually. So instead of ki, it's kia. And the reason for that is because they actually count it as one word. They combine it with the next word and make it into a single word. So instead of ki o, two words. In Hebrew, they write it, in the Dead Sea Scrolls Hebrew, I mean, they write it as a single word. Kio. But because they add an extra prefix, or not prefix, a syllable, what the Jews do is they add a vowel marking. The Jews add a vowel marking, but Dead Sea Scrolls writers, instead of adding a vowel marking, they add the vowel letter, aleph. So then it becomes ki-a-o, ki-a-o. And this also is pronounced the same way. It's pronounced kia-o. because they flow together. And that's why the Aleph is written in the Dead Sea Scrolls, because they're just writing the way they're pronouncing it. Okay, so we've gone through that. Now let's see here. No, which one? Here we go. All right. So now, actually, I'm going to switch to the document file just for a little bit. I wrote some of this stuff already in the document file. Whoops, wrong. Okay. So adverbs are formed with a mem suffix. Right here, mem. So I'm going to show you guys some examples of that happening. And that happens in, let's see here. I have to actually go to the right word. So we got right here, the word for truth is amen. It means true. But you add mem at the end and it makes it truly or in truth. Same thing for silent. It's dalet wa mem, but you add mem at the end, it becomes silently. Favor or grace is het noon. Het noon, but you add mem at the end, it makes it into an adverb. Empty, and you add mem at the end, it becomes an adverb. By day, it basically becomes daily. So yom is day, and then you add mem at the end, that makes it daily. You have sudden, mem at the end, li. And there's plenty of other examples where mem is added at the end. Now, so these are a bunch of different words. So, like I said, and basically have a very similar meaning as with, but apparently aleph tav also can have a meaning of near. So I suspect that ayin mem means more like with, whereas aleph tav means more like near or at something. Now aleph tav, the use of it as like to mean with. So you know how I said earlier, aleph tav means like how it's used as direct object marker. But when it's also used in some places just to mean with, it's not used as a direct object marker in some places. In those cases, that use of meaning with existed in earlier Hebrew, but in later Hebrew it basically disappeared. And Aleph Lamed means unto. Ayin Lamed means upon. They look very similar, and the pronunciation is not too different. Al versus O. And so the scribes copying the Bible, the scriptures, often confuse the two words. You look in Dead Sea Scroll manuscripts, Aleph Lamed and Ayin Lamed are switched many times between the different manuscripts of Hebrew. Also in Aramaic, the word Aleph Lamed doesn't exist, and the meanings that Aleph Lamed has are used for Ayin Lamed instead. So it takes the two words, combines them into one, and Ayin Lamed is the only one. Now, when I say Aleph Lamed does not exist in Aramaic, I mean this specific example for the meaning of with, but Aleph Lamed exists in Aramaic. For example, God is used in Aramaic as well, El. Aleph Lamed means unto, and it's very similar to Lamed, which means two, and they're often nearly interchangeable with each other. And use of Aleph Lamed decreased dramatically in later Hebrew. That's because it was replaced with Lamed usually, and also Ayin Lamed sometimes. And like I said, it's often used to mean against. Interjections are interesting. They're basically like saying like whoa, and you know how the Jews, like, I guess I don't know if it's Yiddish or people like them, but they basically say oy vey. Maybe it's just Hebrew in general or something, but that's basically an interjection. Like oh vey, oy vey, or oy vey, something like that. So let me see here. Ka or ke, kaf, hey means thus. So thus says the Lord, or so, thus says Yahweh. You say thus with kaf, hey. And no in Hebrew is Lamed Aleph, and in Dead Sea Scrolls is written with a Y in the middle. The reason it's written with a Y in the middle is because it's telling you, again, that it's connected to the next word. So it would be like I can't think of the word at the moment. Okay, do not work on the Sabbath. There you go. Do not I'm trying a blank for some reason for the word for do in Hebrew. I can't believe I can't remember that word. Hold on. I'm still learning, like I'm learning like the vocabulary. But do is a very basic one. I'm just okay. I wanna say it rightly. I don't want to tell you guys the wrong thing. Okay. So it's Tasha. So we've got right here. Oh, let me share the screen. We've got right here. Do not work. It would be work on the Sabbath. But so notice it's two words and it's pronounced. It would look like it's pronounced as la tusha. However, they pronounced it as lacha, because they combine it as a single word. Lacha tusha. Lacha tusha. So because there is an extra syllable there in the Dead Sea Scroll people, became laha tusha. So they wrote it out. Hey nun hey means behold. And then with kaf, the explicit prepositions are often omitted, it says. So like, let's say, as to, laman might be omitted, or as in might be omitted. And then also apparently seemingly redundant lamed prefix sometimes follows prepositions. But it's probably not redundant. It's just Hebrew works in an interesting way that is foreign to our way of thinking. But bet yod is often translated as please, but it basically means like you know how someone says excuse me. We see here the me is yod, me. Bet is like in or with, but it's basically saying excuse me. Esh basically means hush. And a lot of these just like wow or whoa. Let's see here. There's not much more to share today. I mean, there is one more thing that's a little bit lengthy, but we did start later. So I'm going to be covering, basically I'm going to be talking about these things right here, these letters. So in a previous lesson, I explained how there's servile letters and radical letters. These are servile letters because they can be added to the beginning, end, and or middle of a word to change the meaning of the word. So we're going to take a look and see what instances that this can happen. So now I'm going to stop using the document to convey and I will share from a PDF file. But there is one word I'm curious about, and that's manna. I want to see what manna means. I think it might just, let's see. Oh, interesting. It just, for some reason, they pronounce it as manna. but it doesn't have an in the Hebrew. Let me go to the passage in the Bible. Man. Okay. And saw. Wait, I'll share the screen first. Actually, I can keep sharing the screen. All right, so turn off the vowel markings. And let's see who left. Oh, my friend Adam left, but he watched it later. He'll watch the rest later. Okay, so he just messaged me on Facebook just to let me know. Okay, so okay, and saw they sons of Israel. And it's basically, and the sons of Israel saw, and they and said they, man unto brother of his, man ua, which means it is man. It is what? But what hold on a second. So what is ma? So I'm wondering why they render it as mem noon. Maybe I'll go and see the etymology of it. Hold on. What do they say? Etymology. They claim it comes from memhe. Ah, so apparently it sometimes does mean like who or what. Interesting. Okay, so nope, wrong one. Here we are. So when aleph is added, when aleph is added at the beginning of a word, it can form the first person singular future of all verbs. So it's a verbal conjugation. It means I will, essentially. I So aleph at the beginning of a verb makes it into a future, or imperfect, actually, not future. So makes it into imperfect verb, and it makes it an I. Now, many nouns, if you add aleph to it, make it a noun from a verb. So for example, the verb for deceive is kazib, but you add aleph to it, it becomes deceit or lie, a lie. And so akzib. And another example is zare, which means it's a verb to spread, but you add aleph at the beginning, and it becomes it becomes a type of tree. And I determined that aleph at the beginning essentially means like object of. So object of deceit or object of deception is a lie. Object of spreading is a tree. And for example, the word for ben is a verb. It means build. But when you add aleph to it, object of building, that's a rock or a block, a stone. And that's used, stones are building blocks in Hebrew, building blocks to build houses and stuff. So that's why aleph is added, to convey that it's an object. Bet, when you add bet, it's only prefixed, and it means, essentially it means in, but it can also mean into, and it can mean with or by. By something. By the power of God. You would say in Hebrew, in the power of God. If you and you could sometimes say in Hebrew, I ate. You would say I ate in the apple, but what you're really saying is I ate into the apple. Into. And then with, like I sang with you. Actually, I don't know if you would say in those cases, but there are a few cases where I don't want to make one up because it could be inaccurate. The best way to give correct examples is to use actual examples from a language, you know. So, but it is sometimes used to have basically a meaning of with or by something. Again, by the power of God, it would be in the power of God. Or by the name of, it would be in the name of, in the name of the law, stop. So, hey, I was just showing you guys bet, and now hey. So if you put it at the beginning of a verb, it makes it a he-ful or hu-ful conjugation. Basically what that means is it makes it causative. Causative means that the verb is causing someone else to do something. So if you eat food, you're the one eating. But if you cause to eat food, you're causing someone else to be doing the eating. So like if let's say you cook a nice meal for a like for example, my dad's church has something called neighborhood meal, where every month, at least they used to do this before COVID, but they made a, like every month they did like a special meal that they prepared for the homeless or for people poor in the neighborhood. And So those people who are workers there are preparing food for others. So they would cause others to eat. Therefore, you'd use the hey at the beginning of the verb. When you add hey at the beginning of the verb, it's not you eating, it's you causing others to eat. Hey also at the beginning of a noun means the, like I mentioned. It also means oh, like oh king, you are amazing. Hey at the beginning, and that's called vocative. That's the scholars refer to it as vocative. Like in Latin and Greek, they have a vocative case for nouns, and it basically means oh noun, whatever the noun is. Oh father, oh brother. The O is signified by hey in Hebrew. If you add it at the end of a noun, it can make it into a feminine noun. It can also make it into a verb. She visited. Pached is visit, is he visited, or a visit. And if you add hey at the end, it becomes she visited. If you add hey to a verb or noun, it denotes her. For example, who did he visit? He visited her. When you have verbs, you can do aleph tav, but you can also do suffixes to the verbs. So he visited her. And hand, her. So when you add hey to a noun, it can make it a feminine noun, but it can also make it a masculine or feminine noun possessed by a feminine individual. So hand of her. And it sometimes is attached to mean his rather than her. Full of him, garment of him, beast of him, covering of him. Sorry, I'm the covering of him. Supposedly, it can mean his as well, rather than just she, but the normal, or her, but the normal meaning is her. And then it can also mean to or towards. So if you say the word for sea, yam, the word for yam in Hebrew is yod mem. But if you are saying you're going towards the sea, you could say, sorry, you could say lamed yod mem, to the sea, right? Or you could say aleph lamed, unto the sea. However, you can also say it as yod mem hey at the end. And hey at the end of a word can mean words. W-A-R-D-S. D S. So towards something. Forwards, so forward, toward, toward, eastward, westward, northward, southward. And so word means towards something. So if you're saying seaward, going towards the sea. And that's signified by hey at the end. Hey at the end of a, excuse me, at the end of a noun. Getting tired here, but this is pretty much the last thing we're going through, this right here. So wa at the beginning, it basically means and. There's a few places where it doesn't always mean and. Like it might mean then, but most of the time it pretty much means and. It just means it connects two clauses together. If you put the wa, if you insert it after the first letter of a word, of a root word, that is, it denotes to be present and continued, and because of that, it forms the participle active. So, for example, the word for visit was pached, but you add wa in the middle of the first two letters, it becomes visiting. Now, I don't know if this is true. He claims that wa is added in these other words to mean a participle, like ruach is a participle that he says. I'm not sure if that's actually true. And yom, now ruach might be a participle because it has two syllables. So that makes sense. But yom has one syllable. It's unlikely to be a participle. Because the idea of a participle is that that it's not there for pronunciation purposes, but it's actually there to signify a grammar rule. And yom, it just looks like it's added for pronunciation. Let's see here. All right, so then wa also can signify the past participle. So basically if you're using it for the word visit, it means visited when it's pachod. And the past participle basically is like, for example, the word break, breaking is present participle, but broken is past participle. But wa can mean both past or present participle. If it's between the first two letters, it's present participle. Between the last two letters, it's past participle. Let's see here. At the end of a noun, it signifies his, as in debaru is word of his word. At the end of a verb, it means him, as in he remembered him. Now, what's confusing when you add these suffixes, it can make confusion because this word zekaru can mean both he remembered him, and it can also mean they remembered. So context alone determines which of the two it is. And also wa can be added sometimes when you're trying to say their or them, depending on the reason. But at the end of a word, it denotes third person plural. The third person plural of verbs is marked by the wa letter at the end. And if it's an imperative verb, it signifies the second person plural if you add wa at the end. At the end of nouns, it makes them collective nouns. So beast is haya or hayat, and wa at the end makes it a collective group of beasts. And they say the same thing for hollow is behu and tehu. In Genesis, it says it was void and waste. Tehu and behu. And then we've got yod is added to signify imperfect singular and plural of all verbs. If it's added at the beginning, it also can form some nouns and many proper names. So the verb is collect, lakith or lakit, and yod at the beginning makes it into a specific type of collection, a script. So ilko, and then the word for laugh or play is zehak or zahik, and zahik, and the name Isaac is Ejik or Ishak. And the word for Jacob comes from the verb to supplant, akyab, and yod is at the beginning, yakib. Same thing with wa. You also can you can add yod in the middle, and it makes it into a special type of noun. So ruach is air breathing, like it's like a strong, forceful. Ruach means spirit, but it can also mean wind. But it's blowing. Whereas with a yod, it's also like a blowing, but in the opposite direction. It's being exhaled. Hold on. Yeah, breathing and like bringing it in, and exhaling is breathing it out. So it's different directions. And also it can be used to mean the passive participle. And it can be used to mean like an individual, like a Hebrew, Canaanite. Like, you know how in English we say "ite"? Well, basically the Hebrew uses "ite", but instead of "ite", it's "I". So Hebrew, it's Avri, and Kanani, and Shalishi, which basically means 3-ite or 3rd-ite. And like we said last week's meeting, the numerals are conveyed by the yod added at the end. The ordinal numbers. Like if you're saying first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, the ith is conveyed with a yod at the end and a yod between the two final letters of the number. And it's also, yod is used to signify the second person feminine imperfect and the imperative. So it can mean, for example, like tafkadi would be you, feminine, shall visit. But it can also mean you shall visit you. Visit you, this person, come on, visit them. You're saying visit you versus a regular phrasing, you will visit or you visit. And when you have a masculine plural in a construct form, like sons of Israel, you drop the mem. The mem is usually there for the plural. Yod mem is the plural. But you drop the mem and it becomes, it still is of, or it's still plural, but it becomes of the following noun. So Melaki ha'eretz, if it was a mem there, it'd be earth kings, but instead you drop the mem and now it's kings of the earth. And at the end of some nouns, again, it's like a ite. It's like, you know, the word in English dynamite. It's an instance of it. So you have fruit, which is pari, and free is hafashi. Violent, akzari, and afflicted or poor is ani. And it can mean my, as in my word, so dabari, and it can be added at the end of a verb. It means he visited me. Although I believe it's supposed to have a noon there. For some reason, the noon's not there. It should be noon yod at the end if it's a verb. So like I said, this is a lot of information, but I'm trying to give you guys an overall encompassing view of how these rules work, and then you can kind of review it on your own time, and we'll be revisiting these things in the future as well. So kaf means like or as when you add it to the beginning of a word. Like a son of man, or like a son of God, for example. At the end of a noun, it means thy. So word of thine, or thy word. Daber, daberach, or daberka. And it can, at the end of a verb, it can mean, like, for example, visit. He visited you, or he visited thee. Lamed can be at the beginning only added, and it means to, for, but it can mean, like I said, it can mean according to, like, or belonging to. So Psalm of David, you actually are saying in Hebrew, Psalm for David or Psalm to David, and what you're really saying is Psalm, Psalm belonging to David, coming from him, but it's unto him. It's like dedicated to him in the sense that he's the one who wrote it. And then mem, like I said earlier, it actually comes from mem noon, and the noon gets dropped, but not always. Like only when it's added at the beginning. When it's added at the end, it's a different origin. So like I said, it means from, right here. When you add it to a noun, it makes it into it can also make it into a participle. That is a causative. So instead of a hey, for participles, you don't add hey. Instead, you add mem to make it a participle. And also very interesting is mem added at the beginning makes it into a instrumental noun. So the verb is protect. When you add mem at the beginning, it makes it a shield. Why? Because it's a source of protection. Protect is gan, and mem at the beginning is source of, and therefore it becomes source of protection, aka a shield. Then we've got the next example, and that is the word for altar. And that comes from sacrifice, zabe. So zabe is sacrifice. Source of sacrifice is an altar because that's where you do the sacrifices. And mishla is rule or ruler, and you add mem at the beginning. It's source of ruling. If you add mem at the end of a noun, it can mean their, like word of them, their word. At the end of a verb, it means them, as in he visited, who did he visit? Them. And if you add wa also with mem, it can form a few nouns, which are adverbs, I believe. See how it's shun? So redeem is pade, but padium is redemption because you're making it into an adverb. So the shun added, just like in English, we add shun to many different things. Information, adoption. So at the end makes it a shun in certain cases. And like I said earlier, these different words, yomam, yomim means daily. Hanim means gracious, from grace. Aminam means truly, comes from truth. So yeah. Hold on a second. Okay, Melissa dropped out. Hopefully she found the information interesting. But it could be going over people's heads because it's, like I said, it's a lot of information. Noon, and at the beginning, it makes it into a passive verbs. So if you're saying like, I ate, you're the one eating. But if someone's eating you, you say, I got eaten. So you use the passive, and you prefix, you add noon at the beginning of a verb to signify that. First person plural imperfect for all verbs you use, like you say, it basically means us or we, but for the imperfect. And for some nouns, you add it, and it basically means like a spreader or propagator. So the word is crop, cut, and spreading of crop would be an ant. Looks like Gregory's coming on. Hey, Gregory. So we're just going through right now. We're almost near the end of this, but I'm going through and showing the different prefixes and suffixes that can be added and what they signify, what they can signify. So we went through where aleph can be added to verbs and nouns at the beginning and end, bet at the beginning, hey at the beginning and end of words, wa beginning and middle of words, yod beginning and middle, kaf at the beginning and the end, lamed at the beginning, mem at the beginning and end, and that's where we are now. And then we are on noon, and that's where we are. So a whisper or to whisper is the verb ragen, but if you put noon at the beginning, it becomes spreader of whisper or propagator of whisper, and that's a whisperer. And if you put noon at the end of a word, it makes it them and there for feminine. And many nouns, it says, are formed with it by adding noon at the end. But it also can be added usually with a wa followed by a noon. For example, like we see with El Elyon, God Most High, it's highest. El, Yon, the on at the end means the like complete, full. So, so as an example of these where noon is added, it gives us in this PDF, it gives a few words, like approach is the verb, and offering is korban. So it's an instance of approaching. And zakar or zachar is to remember, but zacharon is a memorial or a specific remembrance. And shakar or shakar is to inebriate or to become drunk. And with the wa noon at the end, it's drunkenness, like total drunkenness. Same thing for like poor. Someone who's poor in poverty is ebion, because it's total poverty. Ebion. The on at the end gives it that super meaning. Shin prefix, it means who or which or that can mean like, yeah, that or because. And also in Akkadian and in like Aramaic, it also is used for like the passive, I believe. Passive for verbs. And that just leaves us with tav, the final letter. And that it tells us of some examples where prefix to a noun, for example, talmid means disciple or scholar. It comes from lamid, which means to teach. That's the verb, to teach. So tav being added at the beginning is basically receiver of teaching, essentially. And let's see here. And then teraphim is usually used to refer to like sinful objects of worship, but it comes from the verb to venerate something, rapha. So ta at the beginning, receiving something that receives veneration, object of veneration. And so tahana is a prayer. It's a means of obtaining favor. Comes from grace or favor. So receiving a favor is what you get by praying. And then finally, the verb descend is the origin of under, the word under. Now the reason it has a tav there and no noon is because, like I said, the noon drops out. So it'd be tanhat, but the noon becomes soft and then silent. So like something along the lines of like receiving of descent, and aka it's underneath it. Now added at the beginning of imperfect, it signifies for both numbers and genders that it's in the second person. So you singular and you plural for both masculine and feminine. That is for imperfect verbs. And it's also added to imperfect for the third person for feminine, singular, and plural. So she and they. You add it at the beginning. And at the end of a word, it means, if it's a verb, it means the second person for all verbs. So both masculine and feminine. And also singular and plural. And then if a feminine noun is of something else, like daughter of something, or anything along those lines. Oh yeah, queen, let's say queen of Israel. Now normally queen is malaka, although I explained that originally it was melakha with a th at the end, or a tav at the end. But in Hebrew, the way it works is that when it becomes of something, the hey gets replaced with the original letter that it always was there, and that's tav. Tav was the original feminine marker. It got replaced by hey, but in cases where it's feminine of something else, the original tav is restored. And tav is still there in the plural as well for feminine. Like melchot is queens, and it still has the tav there. but the singular, the original tav was replaced by he, except in nouns, which are feminine nouns, which are of another thing. And then it also can form nouns. Some nouns in Hebrew are formed with tav, like fumigate, the verb fumigate. When you add tav at the end, it makes it into incense. Yep, so hopefully you guys found that pretty interesting. And let's see here. I'm going to quickly check this. This is basically going to see if I missed anything else in what I just shared with you guys. So while I'm looking at this, what are you guys' thoughts on what I shared? Anything interesting? Did you guys learn anything, or was it a little bit overboard in terms of too much information? You can share if you want in the comments. I'll stop sharing for a second while I'm looking at this. We got a significantly later start, so we haven't been doing this as long as it seems. I try not to go too much over 2 hours, but like I said, we did start later. So while I'm looking at this, you guys, if you want to say any final thoughts or comments, then I'll quickly see if there was anything else I wanted to say on what I just shared with you guys. I'm looking in the PDF, a different PDF, a different book to see. See. Looks like we don't have anything from you guys, so let me just see. I saw it in this PDF. I just can't find it. So any thoughts, guys, Walter, Steve, on what I've shared? Did you find it helpful? Like, what you can do is you can revisit this information. By the way, the book I was reading from, all those different forms that it was telling about, it's called A Hebrew and English Lexicon Without Points by John Parkhurst. So let me type that in the chat. without vowel markings, without points. And I really value that book. It was definitely helped me get a lot of insight into the Hebrew language. Okay, let's see here. Oh, okay, I think that's what I was looking for. There we go. I know where it is now. All right, let me share the screen. And this will be the final thing to share. It's on the same topic we were just discussing. That's why I wanted to go to it. Okay, so at the beginning of nouns, aleph, hey, and yod they sometimes occur, but they're uncommon. But mem and tav are very frequently added to the beginning of nouns. So aleph, they say is prosthetic, which means it doesn't really change too much for many words. Like arm can be written with aleph and without it. Same thing with finger. Bracelet, indigenous, night watch. Okay, so then, oh yeah, this one, deceptive, that I showed you guys. Other examples, there's exquisite oil, pocket, or collects species of antelope, adversary, substance, an owl, perhaps also Yahuwah, they're saying, with yod added. Then mem is what I talked about before, where it's source of something. So kingdom is source of ruler or source of rule. And envoy or messenger is malach. So messenger is basically source of message or something along those lines. Gift, to give me is natan. You add mem at the beginning, it's source of giving. Source of knowing is knowledge. Source of dwelling is dwelling place. Source of going is exit. Let's see here. But yeah, there's you have it for tower, Migdal. Misan from Nisha. Trust. Judgment is, so the word for judge is shafaf. One of the words for judge is shafaf, but mishpot is judgment. So it's source of judgment or source of judging. Judgment. Lachina is consumption, consume. It's used to mean bread, but it means like to consume something. But source of consumption is war, because war destroys, it consumes. And weight, source of shekel. So here, mitzvah, source of sua or sva. I forget what sva is, but it actually means something specific. But yeah, so that's basically how like the mem at the beginning works. You basically have to learn each example over time. Muad, source of I forget what ud is, but ud is its own word as well. And the book I'm using is Biblical Hebrew, Grammar of Biblical Hebrew by Takamitsu. Tahala, you know those Psalms are called Tahalim? Well, it actually comes from, you know, the Allelu. The Allel is like the praise. So Tahal, it has the Tav added at the beginning. And Yalad means like a begotten, but Talid means generation. Prayer is Tephalim or Tephalin. Let's see here. But yeah, there's just so many. And I was telling you guys about where it's at the end, like wa noon at the end of words. And Abaddon, you know, that's total destruction. That's referenced in Revelation, Abaddon. Rasun, which is like chiefest. It means first. And then kedamun, it basically means like eastmost or eastern. Aharon is the aftermost, means last. Kits means like end, and ketson or kitson, it says means extreme, so it's like the utmost end of something. And it's diminutive. It can mean like a small version of it. The pupil of the eye. And then I told you guys about the adjective thing, Moabite. You add the E at the end. Instead of ite, you just say I or E. Hebrew, Canaanite, Israelite, someone who's cruel, so a cruel one. Foreigner would be a foreignite. So and some feminine nouns have like a oat at the end as well. And there's eat, like beginning, berashit, rashit. So yeah, we will be going into greater depth for this stuff in the future. But I think that's a good place to stop for today. Thank you guys for staying with me for this whole time. I appreciate the patience, and I hope you guys learned something cool from what I've shared. Next Monday, this Monday, we're going to be practicing more pronunciation stuff. So, and then maybe go over a little bit of the vocabulary, some of the vocabulary that we've learned. So I'll wait about 10 seconds. Do you guys have anything you wanted to quickly ask or say before I end this? All right, looks like we're good. Thank you guys again, and hope you have a great weekend and a good Sabbath. And I'll see you Monday. Have any questions, please comment on the YouTube channel or send me an email or contact me on Facebook.